Big story over the Round of Texas weekend is that the inside of Turn 1 has absolutely no grip, according to some drivers in the field. The inside of Turn 1 is usually one of the passing zones around an oval track such as this, the Houston Superspeedway, but there really hasn't been any grip down there, and as a result, there really hasn't been too much passing at all. Except early on in the qualifying race there was some 2 and 3 wide, but not as much as would be expected. With that being said, this is a 1.3 mile oval. Kind of a joke to call it a super speedway, but Omecha chairman Terry Schoffner said that he wants to add a second race in Texas. And some people aren't really sure that that's a good idea. He also wants to add a second race in Britain. Yay! So I'm all for that, and I'm not quite sure if a second race in Texas is quite necessarily in the best interests of the Master Cup Series, but we'll have to see about that. With the rise of the ASCC about imminent, I would say that one race may be overstaying its welcome. With that being said, Dan, off to you. The 2010 Round of Texas saw Tony Durbin from Dallas put the Team SAR USA Eagle on the pole, with Ethan Everett on the outside pole, Drew Eisenman starting third, and Brian Sendak starting in fourth. You're going to see Durbin and Eisenman get a big jump on the rest of the field here. And as they come into turn 1, they're going to be running a little higher than normal, and you're going to see they pull out a big lead over Ethan Everett. You can also notice that the top 4 cars in qualifying were all teammates at Team SAR USA, with Chris Johans driving in the Tremwell Knight, which a lot of people believe is derived from the 2009 SAR Tyrant model. Alexis Rainsford in the back of the field was warned for this start, along with Marcus Leonard in the 999 car. The officials judged that the 999 and 27 cars had jumped the start. However, they gave them a warning for this and told them if they did it again that they would both receive some kind of penalty or other. Rainsford, you're going to see here, Rainsford and Leonard's gains are going to be noticed quite quickly, as through the backstretch they have already gained about 5 spots. Anthony Evans was well received by the crowd, along with Durbin and Eisenman. The Texan native is qualified for his only his second start of the year, and this is the most competitive he's looked all season. He's been well outpaced by teammates Scott Bates and Ian Cooper. Drew Eisenman, as I mentioned before, is from the Houston area, if I'm not mistaken. His teammate Tony Durbin in the lead is also a Texas native. Ethan Everett, not from Texas. However, the SAR Motor Company does have a fair amount of signage around here, so kind of fitting that SAR would lead at a track that they have a lot of billboards at, and they spend a lot of advertising money here in Texas in general. So no surprise to see them running up front, it would seem. Colin Evans is also from the Texas area. He is the son of Anthony Evans in the 10. He's driving car 30. In fact, Anthony Evans owns the car that he drives. Colin Evans, of course, much maligned for his reckless antics from a few years ago. Now running for the Independence Trophy. This is his third attempt and his second start. So Colin Evans has used up half of his Independence Trophy attempts. Not having a very good start to this race, he's running towards the back of the field. He needs to pick up the pace in order to whittle down Cyrus Later's massive lead in the Independence Trophy. And you can see they're already going 4 wide in the back. Yamino Tenchi and Ian Cooper roughing each other up. Charlie Waters, an Arlo driver, is driving a team car to Colin Evans, and of course that team is based in Texas. The 130 car, unlike Colin Evans, was having a very strong run. You're going to also notice Jim Kidd in the 18 car is from Waco, so Jim Kidd, another Texas native, having a very strong run at his home race. As Lance mentioned earlier, there is a push to get 2 races in the state of Texas. However, we will just have to wait and see if that really happens. Leonid Roderick in car number 4 is currently running in the 5th position. Roderick has been having many problems with the new Inglesby M-Type. They've had many problems, and this is obviously not the start of the year that Leonid Roderick would like. He's currently 5th behind the 4 apparently invincible SAR Eagles, which ran 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in qualifying and all the practice sessions. However, you're going to see right about now Brian Sendak encounters a problem with the 8 car, so one of the 4 Eagles is going to have some issues, that being Brian Sendak. Now, this could be a case of Brian Sendak's bad luck, or it could be that this car is a research and development car, which some teams have suspected. However, other teams have also said that it wouldn't be Brian Sendak to sign for a team if he was only going to be an R&D driver. So, whether or not that they were trying new parts in this 8 car, we will have yet to see. Sendak runs wide in the pits, cops a penalty from the officials, and to make matters worse, he drives through his pit stall and has to reverse back into it. Tom Delgado in the 837 car is having a very strong run. This is the first time all season that he's well and truly had the advantage over his rookie teammates Yumino Tenchi and Azuma Kazuyama, both of whom qualified way in the back. Tom Delgado, on the other hand, is using his experience. He qualified quite well, and you can see Scott Bates making a really nice move there on the inside of Zelda Ashby and Marcus Leonard. But this should be a big confidence booster to Tom Delgado, who left Carbondale extremely dejected after contact with Alexis Rainsford in the middle of the race. However, so far, Delgado is redeeming himself and doing a very good job to keep that car in one piece so far. Damian Snyder moves up to 4th after Brian Sendak's mechanical failure drops him into the pits. Sendak's not out of the race. Leonid Roderick sits back there in the 5th position with Chris Johans right there. Right behind him, you can see there's a battle between Lewis Kingston and I think that's David Krikorian in the 9. Damian Snyder was left out of the full-time driving lineup. They decided to put Gary Edwards in the 20 car, which would be full-time. However, Edwards has struggled mightily, and this is the first weekend that all of the Tremwells have been extremely strong. With Edwards' failure to qualify, it makes you wonder whether or not the team might have been better off putting Snyder in the full-time 20 car. Ethan Everett in 3rd is a big gap on Damian Snyder in 4th. Everett is doing a very good job so far, even though he hasn't had the results to show it. In the first 3 races, his pace was not exactly the greatest. However, in Carbondale, he's sat in the pole and ran very strongly for most of the race. And here in Texas, he's running in 3rd, logging invaluable laps behind his teammate Drew Eisenman and Tony Durbin. Everett is the only driver to win his first Master Cup race, TM Lights race, and TM Junior Series race all on the same weekend. And I might also note that with the new rules, he's probably going to be the youngest ever to do that. Ethan Everett is, of course, still 18 years old. Colin Evans in car number 30 is going to have his day go from bad to worse and from worse to terrible. He's fighting with the Volpes and the Katsus in the back of the field, and on lap 11, the car number 30 is just not going to decide the last whole distance, and what we initially thought was a turbo fire in the back of that 30 car proved to be a camshaft failure, which would take Colin Evans out of the race. The first car out, not what he wanted in front of his home crowd, and especially for that team. Yumino Tenchi in car number 831, less than 1 lap later, the Nemoto engine in that car would also give out. And apparently it would be a piston failure that would put Tenchi out, but this is one of the first mechanical problems we've really seen on the Nemotos. So we're not sure if this is going to be something that's going to be happening to all the Nemotos, or if this is just one of those random part failures. The evidence seems to show that it was a random part failure, however. Running in the back with the Volpes of Alexis Rainsford, that second blue car in line is Franz Redlich, and then Zach Duff way in the back in the red car, in the second red car in the back. The Volpes are having an absolutely horrendous weekend. They were extremely slow in all the practice sessions, they were slow in qualifying, and guess what? They're slow in the race as well. Also being slow in the race are the 2 Katsevs of Yulia Nasova in the blue car on the outside and that green and gold car in the back of Woody Watts, who's currently running last of all the cars that haven't had mechanical issues yet. I do say yet because the Katsev cars both lost a cylinder in the closing laps of the round at Carbondale. Also, Stuart Sandoval in the 05 back there is the only Corsa in the field after both his teammates failed to qualify again. Tony Durbin is back up in the lead. That's happened since the drop of the green flag. Drew Eisenman sits in 2nd, Ethan Everett sits 3rd, no change there. Tony Durbin has not really put on this kind of showing before where he has completely thrashed the rest of the field, and that appears to be the case so far in the race. Drew Eisenman, you can see, is using a slightly different line than Ethan Everett is, and Durbin is going to get a run on, Eisenman is going to get a run on Durbin coming into turn 1. However, you're going to note that right in front of him is Brian Sendak in the 8 car, who has rejoined the race. However, he is 7 laps adrift. Brian Sendak's bad luck appears to continue. He's setting fast laps, so it's not going to be like the leader's going to be running him down and passing him anytime soon. But he still could be a potential obstacle during the pit stop cycle. Durbin finally catches Eisenman finally catches Durbin. Let's see if I can finally get that right. However, he's not going to be able to make use of that, and he apparently is going to use up his tires trying to catch Durbin, whereas Durbin appears to have been saving. I should probably point out that of all drivers on the racetrack, Durbin has the slowest personal best lap at this point. Yet, he's leading the race. The irony drips off the screen right about there. Here we are going further back in the field with Yulia Nasova in the number 7 Katsiv. This car is going to have its, well, apparently traditional bad reliability as the engine goes on the 7 car. This is not completely unexpected. The Katsivs have been having quite a bit of engine attrition and just part failure in general, more so than everyone else. It's not exactly what they wanted to see. They've had some really good points finishes, and that's probably because the tracks that we've run so far haven't necessarily been dependent on the engine. At Carbondale, you can lose a cylinder and still finish on the lead lap. Back up with Damian Snyder in car number 19. It's kind of odd seeing Snyder not in a full-time TM Master Cup Series ride, but he's making the most of his opportunities here, and he's actually gaining on Ethan Everett at this point, I should point out. So the SAR Eagles at the front may not necessarily be pulling away. Scott Stoidler is currently running in 9th place in car number 23. This is a great run for the Camelot Racing team in general, well, aside from Gary Edwards, that is. And David Krikorian is sitting right behind him in 10th. Stephanie McGlynn is currently running in 30th, and on lap 38, car 37 is going to pull to the bottom of the racetrack with a suspected flat tire on that car, or at least a tire that's having a slow leak in it. McGlynn would go off the lead lap. Drew Eisenman would begin to lose a lot of time to Tony Durbin. It would appear that Durbin's car is wearing tires a lot slower than Eisenman's is, and Eisenman's not wearing tires nearly as bad as Ethan Everett, who apparently has the worst tire wear on the track. Eisenman in the 31 car has said he really wants to win and get his first Master Cup Series victory. However, beating Tony Durbin here at both these drivers' home tracks seems to be very, very difficult at this point. It appears that's going to have to be done in the pit lane and not on the track, because Durbin appears to be running away with this one so far. He's led from the green flag. This has been a completely dominant performance from Durbin so far. Here we are still on lap 38. Leonid Roderick pulls into the pits with Lewis Kingston and Rachel Rainsford, who is back from her injury after the Brazil race. Tony Durbin pits one lap later, bringing his teammates with him, Drew Eisenman, and the 19 car of Damian Snyder, who's not really a teammate. Ethan Everett stayed out to lead a couple of laps before he decided to pit. On lap 40, Zach Duff in the number 28 Volpe is going to demonstrate how good Volpe's reliability is by blowing the engine entering the pit lane. Not exactly Volpe's best weekend, but it's going to end Zach Duff's day early. It's too bad because Duff has really been having the short end of the luck here at the Volpe Racing team. Zelda Ashby has been known to stay out late and make the most of fuel mileage. Car number 55 has gotten the best fuel mileage all season, and she's trying it again. Here's the top 10 after the pit stops: Durbin, Roderick, Eisenman, Everett, Arto Kekkonen, Damian Snyder, Chris Johans, David Krikorian, and Jacques Bouvier, the top 10 as you see the field going by. Looks like everyone made fairly clean pit stops, no major errors to report. See the stragglers, the Ian Cooper car, the Volpes, and of course Stuart Sandoval and Todd Wodarczyk, who was a bit slow in the pits. Tony Durbin and Leonid Roderick first and second. Of course, Tony Durbin said he regards Leonid Roderick probably the highest of all of his rivals. Brian Sendak in the 8 is going to decide not to be the best of teammates, holding up Ethan Everett just a little bit. However, Brian Sendak is going to make up for this. He's going to pull off the track, head into the pits a little bit, but before he does that, let's have a look at that battle behind him. Chris Johans in that silver and teal car is going to make a move, going 3 wide on Damian Snyder and Arto Kekkonen. Not quite going to work. He's going to lose a lot of time. Arto is going to chop down to the bottom. In front of Johans, he's going to make a move on Everett as Sendak dives into the pits. However, we're going to still follow this fight a little bit. As Arto Kekkonen and Ethan Everett now duel for position. Arto is going to have a run going down the front straight, but as we've said before, you really can't pass on the inside here. Everett's going to be able to hold on, despite a spirited challenge from the young Finn. Arto Kekkonen has been very quiet in the start of his 2010 campaign. Last year's Rookie of the Year, putting on a very good show so far early in the going. You may notice Stephanie McGlynn's car up there a little bit as Arto Kekkonen and Chris Johans almost make contact, and Johans gets a run on Arto. McGlynn is off the lead lap. There is Damian Snyder going by the 14 car, so you can pass in the bottom. It just takes a hell of a lot of momentum to do that. There you see David Krikorian in the 9 having one of his better runs to date. However, you see Damian Snyder and Arto Käkkinen continuing to fight here for position. This is really the only battle on the racetrack worth mentioning, as Käkkinen finally is able to clear car number 19 and sail off into the distance. Lap 45, and here is Adrian Devereaux, who blows an engine in that 26 car. The Colton Morel team has had issues with their engines before, however, Devereaux was running towards the front of the field when he finally retired. Tony Durbin began to pull away from Leonid Roderick in the 4, and Drew Eisenman in the 31. Tony Durbin's apparently was saving his stuff, but I'm not so sure how you're able to save tires and can pull away this much. However, Durbin was apparently able to do it. Chris Johans in car number 24 is being held up a little bit by Stephanie McGlynn in the 37 Red Bull STS right up there. Chris Johans is, after his win last week in Carbondale, said that this 24 team means business. Apparently, he was right. Johans having a strong run so far. However, here comes Arto Käkkinen in his rearview mirror on the inside. Johans is gonna let him have the inside. And we're going to see here that Arto's not going to be able to clear him. Johans does mean business. He's going to be able to hold on to that position and keep Arto Käkkinen in the 14 behind him. David Krikorian is going to have a run on Arto, but that's not going to pay off. Arto Käkkinen and Chris Johans are going to be held up by Stephanie McGlynn, who's not exactly off the pace. Here comes Käkkinen on the inside. And they're going to see if McGlynn's going to be able to get out of the way. And Arto's going to lose ground a little bit. Here's Leonid Roderick in car number 4, currently running in second place. However, in typical Inglesby fashion, the engine goes boom! And how disgusted must you be feeling if you're Leonid Roderick when your engine grenades and you're running in second? At about half distance, Leonid Roderick retires from the event. This is emblematic of his season so far. The reliability, or I should say unreliability, of the Inglesby engines has been costing him dearly in the championship, and Roderick's title hopes of repeating and getting championship number 5 don't appear to be looking very good if you look at his results, which don't really reflect how well he's been driving. Tony Durbin leads the field in for pit stops on lap 77. He's still got a fair lead over teammates Drew Eisenman and Ethan Everett, who both opt to stay out and hopes to gain some ground on Tony Durbin on a couple low fuel laps. Eisenman leads Everett into the pits. Damian Snyder is going to come with, and just about everyone else. Durbin appeared to pit one lap too early. After pit stop cycled out, Charlie Waters in car number 130 is running 11th, and Jim Kidd running 10th. Zelda Ashby's strategy of staying out appears to have worked. She's currently running 8th. Well, last time she was by the line, she's in 8th. She's going to be 9th if she gets passed by Rachel Rainsford. There's Jim Kidd. Tony Durbin continues to lead after everything cycles out. However, this time he's got Drew Eisenman and Ethan Everett running 2nd and 3rd. The 33 pit crew had a great pit stop. Stephanie McGlynn on lap 85 is going to lose an engine in the STS. Apparently there were more problems than just a tire. And Stuart Sandel makes an unscheduled pit stop in the Corsa, which costs him 2 laps. On lap 116, Tony Durbin leads the field in for the final pit stop of the race. Chris Johans in the 24 gains a little bit of time on him in the pit stops, or at least coming into the pit lane. Coming out of the pit lane, though, Tony Durbin's pit crew totally dropped the ball. It was a much slower pit stop than he has had all race by about 2 or 3 seconds. Chris Johans gets right up to Tony Durbin's bumper, suggesting that we might have a fight to the finish. Drew Eisenman in the 31's pit crew has a decent enough pit stop to close the gap on Tony Durbin. And for the last couple of laps, we're going to have a real battle on our hands as Drew Eisenman attempts to steal victory away from Tony Durbin, who has basically dominated this race. Eisenman's going to have one look here on the inside of Durbin. However, that's not going to be enough. Durbin's going to hold him off and win the 2010 Round of Texas in a completely dominant fashion, leading 116 of 129 laps. That's probably the most dominant performance we've seen on an oval in a long time. Drew Eisenman winds up 2nd. Chris Johans backs up his Carbondale victory speech by coming home third, by saying that this 2014 means business, beating Ethan Everett home to finish third. Ethan Everett winds up fourth. Zelda Ashby makes a bunch of good pit strategy calls, winds up in fifth. Great work for Ashby. Much better 2010 than 2009. David Krikorian in sixth. That's one driver who definitely needs an upturn in performance. Jim Kidd for the home crowd in seventh. Also for the home crowd, Charlie Waters in eighth. Marcus Leonard ninth. Kurt Pliskin in 10th. By the way, I'm not sure if you noticed, but all four Power Steering Incorporated cars managed to finish in the top 10. That's the first team to accomplish that feat this season. Now let's check the point standings leaving the round of Texas, and of course Tony Durbin's going to have an absolutely massive 43-point lead over Drew Eisen, his teammate. 60, I'm not sure what the most amount of points you can lose in one race is, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 61. Arto Käkkinen is still out of reach of first as of right now, and 83 points back. Alexis Rainsford in fourth is 93 points back after a solid run, coming home 15th, using some pit strategy to jump her way through the field, however, just wasn't enough. Chris Johans jumps up to fifth. Adrian Devereaux stays in sixth. Zelda Ashby, leading driver for Power Steering Incorporated at the moment, jumps up to seventh. Alan Hodges holds eighth. Woody Watts in the Catsiv in ninth. Some great pit calls from Watts and some great pit stops by the Catsiv crew and some consistent driving by Woody have put him ninth in the championship, and Scott Stoidler quietly hanging around in 10th. Now let's have a look at 11 through 20. Marcus Leonard holds 11th with Scott Bates in 12th from Oklahoma. Stuart Sandoval had a bad week, so he drops to 13th. Ethan Everett jumps up to 14th. Yulia Nasova's engine failure drops her to 15th. Kurt Pliskin in car 16 sits in position 16 in the championship. Don't know why that was so hard to say. Matt Taylor sits 17th in the points. Of course, 2004 champion of the series. Yamino Tenchi sits 18th. Leonid Roderick, oh boy, sits in 19th. And then Jacques Bouvier sits 20th in the championship. Now let's have a look at the Independence Trophy standings. Cyrus Laterza still has a lead on the championship over Colin Evans, who sits at 71. Charlie Waters is 69. Craig Janser, 62. He had a points penalty from last week for his erratic driving. Todd Wodarczyk racks up a couple more points, but Wodarczyk didn't have a very distinguished round of Texas. He was way in the back for most of the race. Thomas Duke failed to qualify for this race. Palmer Stiles is only one start. Likewise for Dan Klezel. Leigh Gurrell, Justin Brooks, and Allie Riggs still on 0.